Let's do a plot synopsis. Fuck.
You're still listening. This is our final transmission.
Oh, we're here, Jamie. How's it going? Welcome to Final Transmission, the weekly podcast where we dive deep into a horror movie together. How you doing?
I'm doing great. We had to delay the start of recording because I had hiccups, but they have gone now, so that's good.
Yep, it's 2 a.m. We started at 5 p.m. Can you imagine editing around hiccups? No, not fun.
Absolutely not. I mean, can you imagine editing, Sam?
No, not even remotely. Anything I'm interested in. You already have to edit around all my farts and burps and various nefarious statements, so I don't think we need hiccups in the mix.
It is true. How are you, Sam? How are you doing?
Oh, spectacular. Sun shining, beautiful day.
Beautiful 2 a.m.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'm good. How are you?
Yeah, no, I'm fine. Apart from the hiccups, I'm doing all right.
I'm setting the tone early by lying at every opportunity.
Yeah.
Much like the cast of this week's film. Unplug my microphone. Much like the cast of this. Fuck. What movie are we doing today, Jamie?
So this week, Sam, I said we would never do it, and here we are. Like a mere few weeks later, really. We're talking about the 2006 Neil Bute remake of The Wicker Man, starring Nicolas Cage.
What changed your mind? What swayed you on this pivotal issue?
I wanted to record an episode that would be fun. And I think this will be fun.
Depends how much you enjoy ceaseless vitriol, dear listener. I have no idea what you actually think about this film because you've flip-flopped like a flibbity-flopping flibbity-gibbet over the last few years, let me tell you.
Yeah, I mean, it's The Wicker Man 2006, baby. What do you want from me?
Yeah, I don't know. I know what I want, I just don't know what I'm going to get. Ain't that always the way?
Yeah. In the words of Mick Jagger, sympathy for the devil.
So...
It doesn't even say sympathy for the devil in the song, does it?
Nope. No. Not even once.
That's poor songwriting, that.
What, having a title that isn't the chorus, basically?
Yeah. Sam Russo would never.
He would try. So, how do you feel about telling us what this movie's about?
I mean... Let's first start by you telling me when you first saw The Wicker Man, the remake of The Wicker Man.
I was thinking about this, and I don't think I know. It feels like something that's always been with me. It must have been around the time that it came out. I definitely didn't see it in the cinema, so I think I bought this because, well, I know I bought it because I own it, but I'm pretty sure I bought this from HMV in Cambridge.
Mm-hmm.
And I physically went into a shop and purchased this with actual money that I earned from a job that I was working. And then I took it all the way home and put it on and watched it from start to finish. And I had an immediate visceral reaction to it. This was a very long time ago. It must have been 2008 maybe.
Yeah.
So maybe even earlier. So I've watched this film many, many, many times. Not sure why, but I have. That's all I'm willing to give you vis-a-vis my relationship with this movie. What about you?
So I think I'm about the same. So I have, unlike you, a massive, massive affection for the original Wicker Man. I know that you don't.
Yeah, let's clear the air early. It's fine.
Yeah,
it's
not boring. It's one of the best films I've made. It dips in and out of my top 5.
Yeah, I mean, as do 350 plus movies, but this one in particular, you have a pretty huge affection for, right?
Absolutely. It's a film that I can go to anytime I want to go to a fun place. I listen to the soundtrack like on the regular. I have like a cult folk playlist, and 3 of the songs from the soundtrack are on it.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. It's a strong statement in audio in a lot of ways, right?
Yeah, and we'll talk about the score here. It might be the only good thing about the movie. But yeah, I saw it probably around 2008, 2009. A group that I was running with at the time were very obsessed with the shitness of it and the silliness of it, and some of those more egregious like line readings.
You had a Wicker Man themed running group.
No, I've never been in a running group.
You said a group that you were running with. You had a
Well, yeah,
group
a
of
crew
people
that
who
I was
ran and
rolling
talked about the
with.
Wicker Man. Oh, sorry. It's those mean Welsh streets again. Sorry, I keep
Yeah,
forgetting.
it was on the internet. All right, so let's start with a plot synopsis of The Wicker Man.
Yes.
So, California motorcycle cop Edward Malus, whose name is a portmanteau of male and phallus. I don't know if you've noticed that, but it is.
Phallic symbol. Yep.
Yeah. He was involved in a roadside collision, I believe that's what the police would call it, where he wasn't able to save the life of a young girl.
Or a mum.
Or a mum, but we don't care about a mum, really. The film doesn't.
Interesting.
He then, while he's in recovery, receives a letter from a long-lost partner asking him to come to the secluded island known as Summer's Isle, because I guess Summer Isle was too confusing for them.
Yep.
And so he goes there to try and find a lost girl. So far, so Wicker Man. And yeah, the difference is, the twist is that he's not particularly religious. That is the twist on the original Wicker Man.
The key difference in the lead phallic symbol characters is that one is religious and one is not. That's the only thing separating them, right?
Yeah, literally that. So he goes to the island. He tries to find the lost girl, Rowan, and the locals don't want him to. They're not very helpful. The island's in Washington, off the coast of Washington.
It is, yeah, near Puget Sound.
Which is stupid.
Why?
Because, I mean, all right.
Are we doing stupids already? Because I've got about 12 based on the last two things you said.
In the original Wicker Man, Summer Isle produced apples, right?
Mm-hmm.
The state of Washington is known for its apples. It is the number one apple producer in all of America.
But what about bees, Jamie?
It's the 8th largest producer of honey in the United States. And if their honey harvest failed, it would have failed throughout the entire state because it's all external factors. It's not like, oh, the ground didn't want to give us nice apples this year. It's like...
It's a curse, Jamie. It's not like... Plus, what you can do, put a helmet on Nicolas Cage's head and fill it full of apples. It doesn't have quite the same ring. Not the apples! It doesn't quite work. I suppose they could have shoved them up his ass. That would have been just as good.
It would have been just as... I would say that would have been better.
I think you're going to say that 100 times in the next hour. So, parcel them out.
That's my first gripe. Is that literally...
Is that really where you're starting with gripes? That feels 10 chapters in. It is the setting, I guess.
Yeah, it's a fundamental building block of the story. Why would you change it from apples when you're setting your movie in the place that supplies America with all of its apples?
Why start in California in the first place? There are so many unanswered questions from the get-go in this film. Here's a pivotal question for you before you've even finished the synopsis. How does Nicolas Cage's character, Edward Malus, get promoted from motorcycle cop to homicide detective while being away from the police force on a leave of absence? That's what I want to know.
Yeah. Well, it turns out all you need to do to to get promoted in the police is to let children die.
Let kids blow up in cars. Fast track to promotion, baby. He fucking suddenly is this hot dick. Actually, I can't even say hot dick. He's possibly the worst detective I've ever seen. And now I understand why. Because it's his first day on the job. He's gone from motorcycle cop to fucking California. Well, he's also out of his jurisdiction. Let's bear that in mind. Maybe that explains why he's not very good. It's like another planet up there.
He is worse than the cops in Blood Feast.
No, I know he is not by any stretch of the imagination worse than the cops in Blood Feast. Even real cops aren't worse than the cops in Blood Feast. Impossible.
I mean, they are, but just different.
Different, I guess. I mean, at this point in the movie, it's worth mentioning we've already looked at a lot of words written in the font papyrus, which that doesn't scream amateur hour at you as a viewer. I don't know what does. Is there ever an excuse for papyrus, Jamie?
Ancient Egypt. It's the only excuse.
Okay. Has to be set in ancient Egypt, or you literally have to be there?
You have to be in ancient Egypt. It's the only time
Okay.
that papyrus is necessary.
Okay, brilliant.
I'm making a joke there, Sam.
I know. I understand the joke. I'm just letting you flesh it out a little bit. Just letting you push the bit.
Push the bit slowly up Nicolas Cage's butt, one by one.
Yeah, so we've already pretty firmly established that there's quite a few gaping, who are obviously Nicolas Cage's bum, errors in the early part of this movie. Not just, things you would question or things you might point out as being a bit strange. Errors.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fundamental errors.
Yes. Not just fumbles, errors. So what happens next, Jamie?
Well, I mean that's the whole plot of the movie, right?
Pretty much, yeah.
Spoiler alert, they burn him to death in a wicker man.
Yeah.
They
You probably could have seen that coming, dear reader.
Yeah. They smash his knees up with a hammer, depending on whether you're watching the unrated director's cut or not, and then they shovel a bees in his face, and I think the only thing worse than the Wicker Man is the theatrical cut of the Wicker Man.
I couldn't agree more. I was so angry when I saw that version. Take out the famous bee scene, take out him having his legs smashed at the knees by a bunch of angry women, and what have you really got left? Not much to hang your hat on. Rough edits there. Even a lot of his dialogue in those scenes is cut out. Some of it's overlaid.
They overlay the bitches, you're all bitches.
Yeah.
Bit of dialogue, which
it's not a great bit of dialogue, really, is it? Let's be honest.
Another thing that I'll say before the jump is that a lot of the dialogue in here is word for word from the original Wicker Man.
Mm.
And it just goes to show how Nicolas Cage isn't Edward Woodward.
I don't know, man. I mean, that's obvious. He's not, but
it's true. He's not. He is not.
There's a lot going on in this movie that fucks with the caginess of it. Like, there's so much happening here that stops Cage from really being the beast unleashed, and I see that as one of the fundamental problems with the movie. But that's for discussion at a later date, I feel.
Yeah. All right, well, why don't we take a break and come back and get bees knees deep in this
Oh dear.
into the Wicker Man.
Okay, honey.
Whoa, holy shit. I guess that's why they call it Phantom Power.
Oh, we're back, Jamie.
We are back, Sam. Sam, tell me about Red Scare Industries.
I'd rather not, but here we go. It's a record label based out of Chicago,
Nice.
primarily focusing on the genre of punk rock music.
Love it.
And you yourself can visit their website, redscare.net, read all about it, buy all the punk you can get your bloody arms around, and shove it up your ass like a load of apples, if that's what you want to do.
So I go to redscare.net. Will I find any Marky Ramone there? Johnny Ramone there. Which Ramone is it?
You'll find neither. This movie is dedicated to Johnny Ramone.
Johnny Ramone.
Spoiler alert. You'll find neither. In terms of famous punks, you'll find a record by Derek Grant from Alkaline Trio.
Cool.
Yeah, that's it. Go nuts, kids. Redscare.net.
Love it. So let's talk about Marky Ramone.
Can we talk about Johnny instead?
Why do I keep saying Marky Ramone? I think he's not even the real Ramone, is he? Marky Ramone.
I mean, he's a latter drummer. He's still alive, on the bright side, at the time of airing.
Not if I
he wrote a book called Punk Rock Blitzkrieg that I read that was fine.
Yeah, didn't he tour as like Marky Ramone's Blitzkrieg? Wasn't that the...
Still doing it, yeah.
Yeah,
Still doing it. I mean, he is an incredibly fast drummer. That's his thing. He's still fast. Irrelevant. This movie's not dedicated to him. It's dedicated to Johnny Ramone.
So, like, Johnny
one of the
Ramone,
more problematic Ramones.
Yeah, I mean, they're all problematic Ramones.
Yeah.
But I watched an interview where Nicolas Cage says that it's it was Johnny Ramone that introduced him to the movie, The Wicker Man, the original movie. Obviously not to this one because it hadn't been made yet. And
introduced him to a movie that he starred in 20 years later.
And he said that he would go over to Johnny Ramone's house and they would just watch horror movies together. And I remember the first time I heard that, it completely blew my mind. The idea of like a Ramone and Nicolas Cage just hanging out in a way that me and you might hang out, Sam, watching horror movies and shooting the shit. It just, what
Which
else
one
did
of us
they watch?
is Johnny Ramone in that scenario?
You, absolutely you.
Oh, fuck's sake. I've seen a lot of interviews with Johnny Ramone and stuff in his house, and he has like a TV room that's basically a completely normal American suburban TV room. And you're right, imagining him and Nick Cage just on the couch, hanging out, sharing a bowl of popcorn, watching The Wicker Man is ridiculous.
So I believe they didn't watch The Wicker Man together.
Oh, it just got recommended it, right?
Yeah.
Imagine
And
what other crap they watched together.
That's what I'm thinking. That's all I can think of. I bet they watched Blood Feast. I can imagine them watching Blood Feast.
Yeah, I could see that.
I know that Nicolas Cage talked about a couple of those like Roger Corman Poe films in the making of this, or in the interview junkets around the release of this. I wonder if they watched a bunch of those sort of like 60s Corman things.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. That seems to be the kind of shit that's up Johnny's alley.
Yeah.
But for Cage to insist that this movie be dedicated to Johnny Ramone is very interesting.
So apparently when Nicolas Cage spoke to Johnny on his deathbed, he was like, when are you going to remake The Wicker Man? So that's...
What?
Yeah.
What a world we live in.
Isn't it?
Come closer. Closer. When are you going to remake The Wicker Man?
When are you going to suck all of the energy and joy and incredible cinematic genius out of one of the best folk horror movies ever made? I don't know, about 2006 maybe?
I can't believe you're even here, Jamie. I can't believe you're entertaining this discussion. Astonishing scenes. It's probably time that I divulge that I'm actually quite a big fan of this film.
Yeah, well, I knew that. And like, I am not.
No, I know.
So the first big question that I want to ask you about The Wicker Man.
Go on.
So obviously it's been talked about in terms of being an unintentional comedy.
Yeah.
Nicolas Cage is on record as saying that the comedy is intentional. What do you think? Do you think it's intentional, or do you think he's talking out of his apple-filled ass?
This is going to sound so pretentious. I think the things that Nicolas Cage is saying are deliberate comedy are very different to the things that people are saying are not. I think he is really funny in this because he delivers some really sarcastic, really dry dialogue that absolutely hits the bullseye from 1,000 miles away. And then he does some stuff that is clearly made more funny by some fucking coked up editing, is my assumption. When he walks up the dock to the pilot and says ahoy, it's one of my favorite Cage moments. It never makes any highlight reels or compilations of Cage moments, but it is so good. And then he sticks to the bit. He says, sorry, I didn't know what to say, and it's really awkward, and the guy's like, you could say hello or whatever he says, and it's a whole bit. It takes up a good minute of the film.
Yeah.
Him not knowing what to say to a seaplane captain. So I think stuff like that is genuinely funny. I don't think in earnest he could do that long walk up to the barmaid and punch her out dressed as a bear 100% seriously, even though he's very stoic and deliberate about the process.
He's
I think
not
he
dressed
knows
as a
that
bear
stuff's
yet.
funny. Oh no, he's not. Sorry, he's not. Yeah, he decks another woman when he's dressed as a bear.
That's true.
I think stuff like that he knows is gonna play for laughs on some level. He has to, and there is some really good dialogue. But yeah, I think the stuff that people burst out laughing and howl at, I don't really think is meant to be funny, and I think it's mostly in the edit, because I think the vast majority of that stuff is actually pretty well acted. It's just bundled together in an idiotic fashion.
I mean, I completely disagree with you that basically anything in this is well acted. There are
Yeah, I could tell.
Nicolas Cage is doing his Nicolas Cage thing, which I like. But it doesn't work in the wider context of the movie because I think most of the other performances are pretty bad. I like Molly Parker and I like Ellen Burstyn.
I love Ellen Burstyn, yeah.
But
she's
but
in The
besides
Exorcist,
that,
right?
Yeah, of course.
Crumbs. Yeah, okay. Here's a question for you about Cage's performance. Do you think there's something wrong with his mouth in this film? He's a little bit like marble-mouthed or almost lispy. There's something lazy going on in his gob chops. What's happening?
I don't know. I think he's trying to channel like an especially laconic type character,
Yeah.
and it comes off odd.
He's doing it all from the mouth. It
Yeah.
seems odd. I thought it was an audio thing at first because it's kind of fluffy. There's a lot of like, and nope. I think it's just his bloody gob. I don't know what he's doing, but it's weird.
It is weird. I mean, his whole performance is weird, and not in that sort of Nicolas Cage way. I think you like fairly astutely pointed out before the break that he is muted here. I think this is this is autopilot Cage.
Do you think so?
Like, obviously,
Seems like a weird thing to autopilot, though. It seems to mean a lot. He loves the movie. Johnny Ramone wanted him to do it. All the boxes here, all the stars align for an explosive Cage performance. And we get something that's very deliberate and very different from what you might expect.
Yeah, like, I want a Vampire's Kiss performance in this. And what we get is not bringing out the dead. That's too good. What we get is like
such a good film.
Yeah. What we get is a Snake Eyes performance. Do you know what I mean?
I know exactly what you mean. And I wouldn't go as far as to say that I want a Vampire's Kiss out of him in this, because I think that would be... I think he knows that's too much. I don't want to credit Cage with knowing when enough's enough, but he definitely comes at this more measured than some of those other performances. But the thing is about this, like, the idea that his voice / his vocal delivery is somehow laconic and more laid back and muted on purpose. Even when he's shouting bitches, it sounds like he's saying like something fluffy in his gob.
I mean, he is being stung by bees which he is deathly allergic to.
His mouth is swelling. Yeah, good point. Maybe it's just a fucking masterful performance. Yeah, I think that's it. Moving on.
No, it's not. Okay, so an aside here is that Nicolas Cage is on record as saying that he hates slasher films. Says that they're disgusting. How do you feel about that?
I've read that too, and I don't know if that's one of those things that he just said, because I can't see it. Can you see that? Can you see Cage really hating slasher movies?
I mean, yeah, I guess. Like, I don't see him... The characters that he likes and plays, apart from in that fucking Willy's Wonderland or whatever, like, they're not characters that you would find in a slasher movie. And I think that, like, it makes sense to me. Like, if he liked slasher movies even remotely, he'd be in 40 of them.
True. He would have an unending supply of slasher offers on the table.
Yeah.
I scanned my copy of Willy's Wonderland Blu-ray to sell on World of Books the other day, and guess how much it offered me?
Penny.
6 pennies.
Oof. That's 600% increase on what I thought, so...
6 whole pennies.
Send it to me for free.
Will do.
One of the criticisms of The Wicker Man is that it is misogynistic. How do you feel about that?
Absolutely fine.
Like, but do you think that it is?
I don't know how a whole film can... Well, no, I do, actually. I think Cage's character could easily be seen as being misogynistic, because he does things like shout, "You're all bitches," and he decks a load of women, and he kicks a woman in the tits, and he acts like the big swinging dick, and he is kind of a rough hang on this woman-dominated society.
Yeah, but I think what people are saying there isn't that, like, a character is misogynistic. They're saying that, like...
The film pushes some sort of misogynistic agenda.
Well, the overall portrayal of women is that, like, they're not good. I don't think it's misogynistic, just for the record. I don't think that that's the message of the film is that like a female-run society is a bad thing.
I don't have strong enough feelings about this kind of thing to have thought about it much, so I'm going to have to be going by the seat of my pants here.
So my read is that it's more about like how power is corrupting, and even if we moved into different systems of power, there would always be a top-down like negative influence, and how all societies, no matter who's in charge, will always commit heinous acts for what they believe is right.
Could be. I think you're crediting this movie with a lot of messaging that it doesn't necessarily have.
Well,
I think
that Neil Bute and Nicolas Cage are both very thoughtful. Obviously, Neil Bute comes from stage where he's made a bunch of things that have all been called misogynistic. But again, I've not really engaged with that much. I think this movie is sort of, he's disappeared up his own arse completely and forgotten who he is. But like, yeah, I think that's what I get from it. Isn't that like, you know, if women ran the world, it would be bad. It's that if different people ran society, it would be basically the same. That's what I get. And also, like, I think they're talking about like the nature of perceived power and how like it only works within the context of a society that currently exists in. For example, like, you know, Edward Malis is a man in a male-led society, and he's a cop given all the power that's given to the police. And he goes into the society where being a cop is nothing, and being a man is actually a big negative. So it's about like removing these things within him that would give him any level of power, and watching it drive him completely insane.
I think that's a solid read. I physically can't read that far into this movie. I don't think it's possible. To answer the question, is this film misogynistic? I think you have to systematically look at how the female characters are portrayed, and then look at how they're portrayed against their male counterparts. They're portrayed as being devious, clever, I guess very principled.
I mean,
no.
I don't think, we're a society that lure men here to kill them because it appeases our bee god is, you know, what normal people would describe as principled.
But I think it is in the context of the movie, because they're holding true to an ancient religion in the face of a society that has 100% discarded and discredited everything that they do and they hold true, and they've created something out of those ancient traditions that works for them and that they live within and that they rely on for, you know, spiritual, physical sustenance. So they could easily move to the mainland and just crack on or whatever. But they do something much, much harder and much more insane out of principle and devotion.
Yeah, but I feel like nobody's like, do you know what? Hitler, he was committed, wasn't he? He was.
Sadly, a lot of people really do feel that way.
Say what you want about Hitler, but he had a
Principled and
singularity of
committed.
purpose.
Yeah, right. I don't see what they're doing as that bad. I know this is going to come off so badly. I think what they're doing is pretty fucking cool. So I find it really hard to criticize them. I think you're so infuriated by their behavior throughout the movie because you're supposed to be Team Cage. You want him to find the little girl, and you back his crazy antics the whole way until you find out he's been duped. He's been led there, and he's been deliberately set up to be sacrificed. At which point, I think you firmly swing to the other side, and you realize, they're actually really fucking good at this. Much respect. That's how tonally all over the place the movie is. I don't know who I want to win.
So I disagree with that. I think that, like, you're never really on Team Cage because he's such a dick all the time.
Oh, I don't see him as a dick either.
Like, with Howie, he has, like, the righteous, like, the fury of, like, his faith that's guiding him through this quest to find Rowan.
Which I hate, but yeah.
Like, sure.
I just find him so unappealing as a character, as a lead.
I think Nicolas Cage is I would say more unappealing in this movie. He doesn't do anything of any value, and like he ultimately gets a bunch of people killed. He kicks a load of women in the tits. He does a bunch of karate dressed as a bear. Like,
Yeah. What are you talking about? You're listing all the best bits and saying he doesn't do anything of any value. Take all that out of the movie, you got nothing. He's the only valuable fucking piece.
Yeah, but in the narrative, he doesn't do anything of value. He's not. I just don't think he's very compelling in this. I don't think the character.
I don't think that's. I don't think that's
Edward
his
Male
fault.
Phallus is compelling at all. And
in this movie that you're saying is not misogynistic, you don't think the character of Edward Male Phallus is compelling enough. I don't think that's his fault. He does his best with what he's given. The narrative is slop dick. It's piss poor, and
But it wasn't like
he tries to fucking.
He was given it. He was served it at a mate's house and had to smile while their mum laid all on his plate. Like he was involved in the production from the beginning. Like literally, Johnny Ramone was like, "Make the Wicker Man," and he was like, "I'll go talk to Neil Bute." Or I mean, I'm assuming that's how it went. And he toddled off from Johnny's deathbed straight to
set.
Yeah, I mean, there was some studio interference here, and that's obvious from the difference between the theatrical cut, which was cut for the MPAA, and the unrated director's cut. One cool thing in the theatrical cut that we don't get in the director's cut is that there's the shot or the scene at the end where it's Lilu Sobieski and the other one in a bar, and it implies that James Franco is getting burned next. And so I like that because I don't like James Franco very much.
So many questions. Why bring James Franco into what is basically a fucking epilogue? It could be a post-credit scene. Why bring James Franco into a movie that late for so little, and then chop it from the main cut of the movie?
That's in the main cut of the movie. It's not in the unrated director's cut.
It's not in the good cut, is what I mean. Yeah. So keep James Franco completely out of the good cut of the movie, but in the bad cut, have him in it for 40 seconds.
Yeah. I mean, I like that because it at least shows that they're systematic in their approach, and they go for cops because they know that they can manipulate them in this very specific way. I mean,
which I think is very cool.
It does suggest that they are very limited in their scope because eventually one of their cop mates is going to be talking to one of their other cop mates. Yeah. Like bad actor Mustache Man from the beginning is going to be like, "Oh, my mate disappeared. Your mate disappeared. I wonder, did they get a letter and go to Summer's Isle? Yes, they were looking for their missing daughter. Oh, okay."
How bizarre. How strange. All these cops keep dying on this island. Get the fucking cops from Blood Feast on the case, and all will be well. I'm still troubled by this misogyny question. It's something I hadn't thought about, and now I don't know how I feel.
Like I think that people think it's misogynistic, and I would love to hear from some people who do, because I think it's a fairly interesting conversation at the center of a really, really uninteresting movie.
Here's an observation for you. Diane Delano playing the barmaid.
Yeah.
And Kate Bean playing Sister Willow. They share a scene where it's just the two of them. That is the four craziest lips to ever be on a screen together in the history of cinema.
You think? I don't know about that.
Yes. Come on. I mean, unless Willem Dafoe has been in a scene with Kate Bean, I cannot match.
So the first thing that springs to my mind is there's a scene in Class of Nukem High 3 Subhumanoid Meltdown where a bunch of the characters develop lips on their stomachs, like mouths on their stomachs.
These are weirder.
I don't know.
There's a lot of like mutant lips in the horror genre. This is inexplicable next level lip jobbery. Were they both cast opposite each other because of their maddening lips? What's happening?
I don't know. I can't say I noticed.
Wow, I did. Oh boy, did I.
So Edward Woodward was meant to have a cameo in this.
Yeah.
And I've been racking my brains trying to think who he would have played, and it must have been the Harbour pilot, right?
Yeah, quite possibly. He could have had a character all of his own, which would have been really useful. Some kind of old man sage who gets away with giving secrets to Cage. An ally of some kind. a hermitic stray.
My
I would like that.
thoughts was the harbor pilot, because like would there be some like poetic thing in the person that died in the original bringing Nicolas Cage into this world?
Well, here's a much more important question, Jamie.
Go on.
In the movie The Wicker Man, the remake of the original movie The Wicker Man, why do the women on the island murder the pilot, who did exactly what they wanted him to?
Oh yeah, that's a really good question, because like obviously they were like, oh, the pilot brought you, but like I mean, I know that they wanted him to come there, but maybe they didn't want the pilot to betray their trust. But like, how else is he going to get there?
That's entirely plausible. But wow, is that hard to follow?
Yeah.
When you find out that the second they reveal it's all a big plot, I immediately was like, then why the fuck did you kill the pilot? He's like your best guy.
Yeah.
Oy, oy, oy.
All the men on the Wicker Island on Summer's Isle are the worst men. Like they're
pretty funny.
Obviously, I mean, I'm not going to go on and on and on about how much I like the original, but I kind of am. Like it's so sexy and it's so weird, and the conversations feel like real conversations that people are having, and the sacrifice at the end of the film feels earned. Feels like we're building up to this, and it's been teased out in a way that makes you feel like, yes, I have earned watching Howie burn to death in a Wicker Man. Whereas like
absolutely.
In this, they keep being like, oh, the Wicker Man's tomorrow. It's the celebration of death and rebirth. It's
the best bit is when he can't figure out what day it is. Is it
what
tomorrow
is the
or the
day
day
of
after?
tomorrow?
Yes. Fucking what?
I think my favorite,
right.
my favorite like little line you mentioned when he's like says ahoy to the boat pilot.
Yeah.
The boat pilot, that's not a thing. Is when he walks into the pub and it's full of women, and he's like, must be ladies'
night. So good. So much of that in the early part of the movie. He's really funny in that early. I'd say the 50-minute mark is when Cage starts caging, really. And it's when the action of the movie really kind of kicks off. The whole time before that is kind of playtime for Nicolas Cage, I think.
Yeah.
He's given a bit more room. He's a bit more relaxed. He inhabits the character a little bit more instead of just sort of flying off the handle, which I like.
Yeah.
You're right. The original Wicker Man is just a lot of earning that final burn-in. You got to earn the burn. This movie that doesn't happen.
No,
I don't know what does, but it ain't that. And yeah, the original is sexy as fuck. And despite their best efforts, this movie's not.
Yeah.
It's not sexy. The kiss scene is so awkward. It's the worst. It's one of the worst kiss scenes ever in a movie. Like, it's that bad. The hesitancy and the weird, like, bizarrely, unsexily stiff coupling of faces. One of the biggest and best sets of lips going, and Nicolas Cage, you should be on, but we're anything but. It's a bad kiss.
Yeah, I think like obviously she's like 24, right? Kate being. She's like so much younger than Nicolas Cage. And also like they reveal that she's in on the plot from the start and it was all part of the thing. So like she was a good enough actor to seduce and almost marry.
You think the plot stretched that far back?
Yeah.
To which you first fucking hell.
Yeah, like that's the point of the James Franco stuff, right? Is that they literally send women out into the world to be impregnated by police officers so they can pretend that their children die to lure heroic policemen to the island in order to sacrifice them to the Wicker Man. Like it's
the chaos of
gibberish.
Her dialogue threw me off that a little bit. I know I get that. That makes more sense. But I thought she was saying that she'd met him in like another life, and then she had legitimately gone back to Summer's Isle and then called him back as a sacrifice. But you're right, that makes more sense in the nonsense.
Yeah,
I think what's really hard for me to credit her with a good performance in this because of basically one thing, and that's the whole burning scene. Every time the camera goes to her, she is displaying a completely different emotion.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's her showing some range. I think she's got no fucking idea what's happening in this film for the most part. I don't think she'd finished reading the script. Do you know what I mean?
I completely agree. Like when Ellen Burstyn's sister Summer's Isle is like, oh, this was all part of a plot. You've been duped. It's all been a big game. She's like super smug about it.
Mm-hmm.
Super smug and like happy and like, haha, I fucking got one over on you. And then every time we see her in The Burning, she looks really conflicted.
Yeah.
And
then
confused,
really happy.
And then happy. And then, yeah, it's nuts. I don't know if we're supposed to think that she's conflicted, but like she isn't. Why would she have a decades long quest to burn this one specific guy?
Mm.
And like another thing is that like it makes no sense for them to burn him. He says all this dialogue like, I don't believe in it. It won't work if you just burn me. But like
killing him won't bring back your goddamn honey.
It's true. But like it doesn't make sense. Like I think in the original, again, there are two interesting things at work there, which are one, how he is very devoutly religious and really, really believes in something. So, like, it doesn't necessarily matter that he doesn't believe in, like, the pagan gods that they worship on Summer Isle. And two, he's given loads of opportunities throughout the film to not get sacrificed. All he has to do is fuck Willow in the bar, and then he doesn't get sacrificed. They actively want him. They have to tempt him, and he has to be like, no, I will not be tempted, to show how religiously pure he is in order for it to be worthwhile for him to get burned. Whereas Nicolas Cage just wanders around shouting, how did it get burned? And swimming underneath fucking graves.
And then loudly screams, this doesn't make any sense. This isn't going to work. And he's 100% right.
Yeah. Like there's no value to burning him. He's just a dude. You can't just...
Yeah, you're right. It's a total weakness in the plot that there's zero connection between sacrificing him specifically and for all the amount of waffling that happens in this movie and the ludicrous amounts of verbal exposition, and even despite, Ellen Burstyn's best efforts to kind of link stuff together and be a matriarchal figurehead explainer of everything, at no point does she say why sacrificing him is going to help in any way.
They try. The line is they have to be connected to the island in some way.
A blood connection, yeah. But like
doesn't make any fucking sense.
It doesn't make... No, I mean, it fine. If it does, if that's all the amount of sense you need, there's gotta be better, easier ways.
Yeah,
Come on,
absolutely.
Like this ridiculously protracted... Like, people would probably volunteer. Just start an OnlyFans. What the fuck are you doing?
Yeah, no, I completely agree. It doesn't make any sense. Also, another thing that really annoys me is that Molly Parker's character, Sister Rose, misquotes Don Quixote.
Misquotes Don Quixote. I knew you'd grab that, and also has
Tilting
William Blake
windmills.
on the board in her classroom. I know you're a big Blake head. How do you feel about that?
I mean, I like that. I think that's cool. But
do you think someone just Googled literature bees and then found the first thing and put it on the board?
100%. But yeah, the misquoting of Don Quixote really irked me.
I know. I could fucking feel you simmering from 200 miles away.
Like, tilting windmills, that's not... You're missing a key thing. Oh, fucking stupid. Really stupid.
Yeah, I'm wondering if maybe our take on this movie is misogynistic.
It's not misogynistic to point out when a woman gets Don Quixote wrong. Bear in mind, this movie wasn't written by a woman. It was written by Neil Bute. So it's him getting it wrong, really.
Yeah.
Okay, can we talk about the only actually good thing in the movie?
I'm very interested to hear what your pick is for that particular category.
The score.
It's your boy, Angelo Badablebleblebe.
I know that you're a big Angelo Badalammentalist, so you're...
I wish I was a big Angelo Badalammentalist, but I have to confess early that I'm so basic. I just absolutely love Twin Peaks.
It's true.
I mean, if that's not the first thing you think of when you hear even just the name Angelo, what are you doing?
He will always be synonymous with the Twin Peaks theme, but I think this might be my favorite of his scores.
Wow.
It's so good.
Yeah, it's really good.
so much better than this movie deserves. And also, if you listen to it like outside of the movie, you still get the full plot, and it's a much better movie that you picture in your brain.
It's a very, very articulate score, and
It's so good.
Yeah, it also, before we just spunk all over Badalamenti, it kind of makes everything funnier because it's so
Sincere.
It's the Twin Peaks
very
factor.
sincere.
Yeah, it's so earnest and so sincere. Butt it up against something so silly, and it makes it 10 times funnier. I bet he's fucking furious about this film.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I love the way that it like weaves through these themes, crashing them together, like all these like weird, like syncopated little bits and drums. It almost reminds me of like Clint Mansell and like the insane, amazing Clint Mansell Kronos Quartet stuff that has become so synonymous with like film music around this time. I wonder how much like Angelo Badalamenti had taken from that Requiem for a Dream score, for example.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I mean, you got a guy here who's got a pretty broad palette. I mean, his capabilities are obviously enormous, like borderline endless, it seems. But the stuff that he picks and the stuff that he does, you can't really call it genre specific. And if you've got a guy scoring both the remake of The Wicker Man and the remake of Stalingrad, that's you're putting a lot in the guy's hands. Those are precious gems to a lot of people. And if anyone showed up to work and actually did their job on The Wicker Man, it's Big A.
Completely agree. Do you have a different pick for the best thing about the 2006 Neil Bute film The Wicker Man, starring Nicolas Cage?
Yeah, it's the end. The tight little section that starts with him decking the barmaid right up till the end. I still find it endlessly entertaining. I think, realistically, I see this as a horrible, horrible film full of little nuggets of almost hope that it could be slightly better. So my favorite bits are those nugs. I love it when he gets stung by a bee and then runs into a field of beehives when he could run the other way, for example. I love that shit. The physical action sequences in the film just make me laugh every single time. I do like the burning scene. I think it's pretty good. I love his knees being smashed. I don't know. It's hard for me because I don't have the really deep love of the original. So this is in no way sacrilegious to me. It's not like it's dumping on something beautiful. I love the look of the original movie. I really enjoyed the few times I watched it. I enjoyed most of it, but I do just find it so dry. I think it's visually gorgeous. I think there's so much in it that appeals to me in terms of the folk horror aspects and the fact that it's obviously digging pretty deep into some explorations of English folklore, etc., etc. But I'm not even remotely scared, and I'm kind of bored most of the time. Whereas in this, at least I'm not bored.
Okay, well, I'm bored a lot of the time in this.
Yeah. I just can't be bored even looking at Nicolas Cage is my problem here. I'm obsessed.
I think the first hour and 20 minutes is like, it's slow and plodding and like nothing interesting is happening. And then when we get into the fun stuff at the end, I think that's fun, but it's not good.
It's not good, no.
I do think there are some interesting visuals in here, and I think that the production design is quite good. The way that they sort of bring in those honeycombs into like the background. Obviously, some of it is quite on the nose, like the field of bees, but like the way that they have that sort of honeycomb stuff, and quite subtly throughout the production design as a whole, like that's interesting and clever. I think again, it shouldn't be fucking honey; it should be apples.
Yeah, poison apples.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, anything good.
Nicolas Cage could be allergic to poison, and that would.
I don't know. That's a stretch. It's like anything good in the film is immediately undermined by something terrible. So like all that subtle, what you would do in a good film would be to subtly bring in this menace of. It's hard to make bees menacing in that way, but yeah, sure. That's how you do it, right? With hives and with lots of talk about drones and queens and blah blah blah. They don't do that. They have him splat one on a bar and say, "I'm allergic." Really on the nose, dun 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 kind of way. Yeah. And that ruins everything else. It takes away all the subtlety. It sucks the life out of it, like you said.
I think like some of the interactions between the characters from the very beginning as well, like the when it's Krista Campbell, low budget horror legend Krista Campbell is like the diner waitress, and she's like, "Oh, you look like you just had one of my burgers." It's like it's absolute dire dog shit.
Yeah, it's
and
terrible.
like the scene in the classroom where Male Phallus goes to talk to the kids and has that interaction with Sister Rose, like that is word for word exactly the same as the original. Like everything in that scene, like when he opens the desk, it's a beetle that's sort of slowly working its way around a nail, and in this one it's a fucking crow or whatever for some reason.
Yeah.
We trapped the crow in here to see how long it would realize until it was dying or whatever. Like they're trying to say the same thing in a way that gives you a jump scare rather than something creepy to look at.
Yeah.
And
which again ruins it.
Yeah, and again, like that's the sort of fundamental difference is that like Howie is the beetle slowly working his way towards this inevitability.
Yeah.
Whereas the crow is just a crow in a box.
Yeah, it makes no sense. And you're right, it takes away an opportunity for just a clever visual and
but like
something that makes the viewer go, "Oh, interesting, circling towards a central point. What a cool, fun thing to put." No, none of that. Bang, crow. Fuck. Okay, next.
Yeah, and like obviously there's also like the maypole element of that. Like circling the maypole. And like we see a maypole, but they never use it. But also like what I was getting at originally was the that dialogue is all the same. And it comes across so ridiculous here.
Yeah, it doesn't translate to it's out of context. The kids can't talk like that. It doesn't make any sense.
When he's
because
like, "You're all
nobody in the
liars,
movie is,
and you're the biggest liar of them all." Like when Edward Woodward delivers that, you believe he's full of this righteous fury. Whereas Nicolas Cage looks like a weird, angry school teacher, like geography teacher. It's just, it doesn't.
But it's such a fundamental mistake that anyone could see coming. You can't take someone else's dialogue and stick it into a completely different character in a completely different context. Even just by virtue of him having an American accent, it makes some of that stuff hard to deliver.
Yeah.
He's done so much in the movie up to that point. We're over an hour in. You know, they're not his lines. It's just taking lines from a completely different movie and putting it in a random character's mouth. Nonsense, gibberish decision.
It's like, I mean, this is different, but it's the reason why the first season of The American Office is dog shit. Because it's literally
maybe not the whole first season. Definitely the first, like...
Well, yeah, I would assume 6 or 12 episodes or whatever. The ones that are all word for word the same as the British Office.
Have you seen the first season of The American Office?
Like, I've dabbled.
Okay.
I don't like The American Office.
Right.
I didn't care until James Spader showed up, which is, I think, when everyone says it went bad.
But at least
I love Robert California.
Yeah, but at least there's an effort to adjust all of the material for cultural purposes. You know, that doesn't happen here, and that's why it's shit. Like, it makes good writing seem terrible, and that's a feat of modern cinema.
It's a roughy scruffy.
Yeah, scruffy is the word. There's a fantastic moment in this film that sums the the blind, groping nonsense dumbness of it up is when Ellen Bernstein's character says, "This is a story whose chapters were carefully written."
Yeah, I wrote that down as well because like between that line where it's like, okay, no, it wasn't. And the tagline, which is like, "Be careful what you search for."
Yeah.
Like, which is fucking meaningless. It's up there with like Alien versus Predator. Whoever wins, we lose. Like,
that's great though. Come on.
I mean, that is great. But if you can take the tagline and apply it to the movie in general as like, whoever wins, we lose, the audience. Like,
exactly. Yeah. But that's also, it makes me think, again, so much is wrong with this, but that title, do you know what it fits? The cover. and nothing else. Because on the cover, inexplicably, his daughter is some sort of ghost demon child. So by looking at this, you'd think you were in for some like, oh no, a scary kid movie. Nope. Be careful what you search for or whatever the fuck is perfectly applied to that if the little girl turns out to be a demon. But that doesn't happen.
Yeah. I think also you say that you can't read too much into this film, but they desperately want you to. Like it's not an accident that he's a motorcycle cop on the mainland and he rides a push bike on the island.
Yeah, great spot. By the way, I don't mean that the royal, I mean I can't. I'm sure there's plenty of people out there, including you, who have the tools to do that, but I fucking don't, bud. Yeah, I love that. Your transport, sir. Wheels him off his bike. So good.
I like another thing that I think maybe makes it non-misogynistic, or at least tempers any misogyny that you might find in there, is that like Malus is driven in completely insane by the removal of his power. Like it's all about the fragility of men and the fragility of like patriarchal rationalization. And I think like you couldn't do that in a film that was like, look how bad a female-led society would be. I think it's more about, I think maybe also Neil Bute has been accused of being misanthropic, and I think that might be just more accurate, is that he has a disdain for everybody.
It's a bummer to have a misanthrope direct a movie that's essentially about faith, or the original is at least. That doesn't work. Weird. I think I hear what you're saying here, and again, I just think. By the way, this could be your PhD. I think in defense.
I'm not defending The Wicker Man 2006. So
a misogynist's defense of The Wicker Man 2006, a PhD thesis. That's how it sounds. You really thought this through. The lengths you'll go to justify misogyny. I just think that the interplay between, if we're saying Nicolas Cage represents the phallus in this movie, right? If we're saying that, which again, I don't know. The interplay between Nicolas Rage. If we're going with that, the interplay between the phallus and the female-led society, to me, is just more one of frustration than it is anything else. You know, they're being deliberately obtuse, they're deliberately misleading, all the things that seem bumbling and ridiculous, and an inability on the female character's part to conceal wrongdoing. At first, we think that until the big reveal, is actually calculated behavior and choice of words to lead him in a certain direction. So, you know, when the women say things like, she died of being burned to death. No, fucking hell, I'm getting it wrong. What is it?
She will burn to death is what she says. And then he's like, what did you say? And she's like,
I
said what I meant to say. She burned to death. It's
Yeah.
A, fucking stupid, and B,
Yeah.
fucking really stupid.
But in the context of the big reveal, that is supposed to be deliberate, right? To keep leading him on, to keep bringing him down the garden path. The same with the completely surreal and, in my opinion, absolutely wonderful conversation with the wood chopping lady. Brilliant, great stuff. She's all over the show, and so's he, and he's being spun deeper into a web of deceit. So, yeah, I don't know what I think there. I just think that relationship to me feels more characterized by deliberate deception and almost toying with your food, playing with your food a little bit, which I really like.
I'm not going to say I really like it because we're talking about The Wicker Man, but like the read that says that this is misogynistic, I think is, and again, I mean, you know, me and you, we're both dudes, so we don't necessarily get the final word on what's misogynistic or not. But I think the read that says that this is misogynistic is maybe just a bit reductive in terms of like the women are the baddies, therefore that means it's misogynistic, which I just don't.
Right.
I don't necessarily agree with that, but I'm happy to have a conversation with someone that does, because I would like to really understand why it would be misogynistic to say women can be baddies too. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I just don't care enough. I think they're the goodies.
Well,
I've got a big question for you.
Go on, I'm ready for the big question.
Why does Nicolas Cage have a self-help book called Everything Is?
I was going to ask you about this. It's actually tapes. It's a series of tapes.
On tape. Yeah. Why does he have those?
Is it meant to symbolize that he's like, or symbolize, or even just show that he's like at a low ebb where he can be manipulated by like, shitty looking self-help gurus
If
or
so,
anyone around him?
sure, fine. Not a terrible plot device to show us that without telling us that, I guess. But then why bring them back? Why have them be stolen from his bag? It doesn't make any sense.
So he can go through his bag and whip out his EpiPens.
That's it, right? Yeah. But we could just see him unpacking. We could just have that. When he says I'm allergic, he could just pat his pocket and say, "But don't worry, I've got an EpiPen." It's just no reason.
Yeah, I have another question.
Here they come, thick and fast.
A thing that's really stupid and has no real bearing on the plot beyond like, oh, that would be kind of creepy in a good film, is the woman and the child that die in the beginning.
Yeah.
Live on the island, and they were what? Plants? They were put there to fuck with him, but they died in an explosion, but they didn't die because we see in these awful flashbacks which have this fucking black and white on them and this effect on them that is frankly the most egregious thing in the film. I hate it. It can fuck all the way off.
It's bad.
But like, if we're seeing in these flashbacks, if they are flashbacks, that they weren't really there, then presumably there were some dead bodies that were recovered from this explosion. Otherwise, they wouldn't just give him a load of time off because he was like, "Oh, a car exploded and there were people in it," and they were like, "Sure, there were, Nick. Cool. Take a couple of weeks off. You've gone batshit bonkers."
I need a prequel movie to understand all this. I again, like, I've seen this movie so many
Wicker
times,
Boy.
and I still have no idea about just that couple of blowed up chicks. I have no idea if they lived on the island or if that was a hallucination. I have no idea. Who are the dead people in the fucking in the sea? What's that? What's that all about?
Yeah.
What?
None of it makes a lick of sense.
Why bury the burned doll? Why
How
does
did it
that
get burned?
happen?
How did it get burned?
Also, how did it get burned? We never fucking find out. Cage is asking all the right questions. He's looking for love in all the right places.
He's actually not. And that's the plot of the movie, Sam.
Yeah. Why does Ellen Burstyn cosplay Braveheart
I don't know.
at the end of the movie? Why does that happen?
Also, why does it need to be like, oh yeah, my ancestors went to Salem and saw the stuff that was happening there and they were like, we don't like it, we're going to go a different place. Like, why do we need to...
She doesn't even say that. She kind of says like, and whoops, they ended up in Salem. Like, wink, wink, they all got burned at the stake. Like, what the fuck? Oh boy. She's trying her best, but you can tell even she's like, what the fuck am I saying?
Yeah.
It's bad. It's real bad.
Yeah.
That being said, why do we return to the Wicker Man?
I think I had a much greater tolerance for shit movies when I was in my 20s.
Wow. Your tolerance is pretty high these days, so I can't imagine what kind of tripe you were trolling back then.
I mean, I was trolling a lot of tripe. I just don't think The Wicker Man is as fun to 39-year-old Jamie as it was to 22-year-old Jamie. Do you know what I mean?
I can totally see that. Even back when you were humping a lot of guff, I bet this still hung you up in the same places. To me, it's that it doesn't have a lot of rewatch value. You could watch it once and be like, "What the fuck? That was ridiculous," and then you could quite happily get on with your life.
Yeah, I think the trick that the Wicker Man plays on you is the memorable parts are fun.
Yeah.
So you remember the movie as being a fun little silly adventure, but when you go back and watch it, there's a lot of chuffer. There's just a lot of chaff in the wheat.
Yeah.
Do you want the chaff or do you want the wheat? I never really understood that expression.
You want the wheat, bud. It's the wheat is the part with the value. The chaff has less value.
Okay.
Oh, look at all this chaff.
I want the wheat.
What's for breakfast?
I'm separating the wheat from the chaff so I can have both.
What's for breakfast, mother? Chaff.
Chaff.
Well done. You've successfully separated the wheat from the chaff. Now throw away all that wheat and plate up that chaff.
Yeah.
Fucking heck.
I'm here with my Chaffabix.
Chaffabix. Oh, boy. Superb.
I just thought you didn't want them to be mixed. I thought maybe.
Always separate them. Always
Yeah.
keep them. Always eat your wheat before your chaff. That's the rule. So yeah, to your point, I think the opening and the ending are so full of, slobber knocking nonsense fun that the middle part just fades into the background of your memory, and you just remember a pretty cool setting, some stupid crap, and not being particularly entertained. But you give it a pass because at the end you get to see him scream, "Not the bees."
Yeah. All right. Why don't we? I think we've exhausted all of the conversation we can have about this
I mean, I'm exhausted. I don't know
absolute
how our listeners
steaming
must feel.
pile of shit. So let's take a break.
Come on, man. Does that thing even work? No. There's nothing out there. It's just dead air.
All right, Sam, I am back. Are you back?
Yeah, I'm back.
Do you want to know what I think social media is the equivalent of?
I really do.
So following us on TikTok and Instagram at FT Horror Show is the equivalent of having a helmet put on your head and loads of lovely content being poured into the opening in the top while you shout, "Yes, the content." So if that's an experience that you want, then you should follow us on those social media platforms.
Oh, that's an experience everyone wants, right?
It feels like
Fuck yeah, buddy.
drop kicking all the women that you know.
Yeah, feels like dressing up like a bear and just decking a barmaid.
Do you think it's weird that like the plan was originally to burn him in the bear suit, which it's a thing that happens in another quite popular American folk horror.
Is it?
No spoilers. And also, I read that Nicolas Cage wanted to have a handlebar mustache.
Really? Well, they
Yeah.
said no.
Yeah.
They put him in that lame suit, which again, completely inexplicable from being a motorcycle cop to wearing that. He's not even
Yeah.
wearing anything like that in his civvy time. It's not congruous with American detective uniformery. It makes no sense. I love the bear suit. I think the bear suit is fucking brilliant.
Yeah, I think it's pretty cool. If you like helmets, if you like all that stuff, do follow us on those social media platforms, but also go to whatever you're listening to this on now. Make sure you're subscribed. If you're listening to this via YouTube, which
Hit
is
that bell.
it's an insane way to engage with a podcast that has very little video presence. Hit the bell or follow us on an actual audio platform where you will get the exact same thing without having to have a tab open.
Or both.
Or both.
Just shut up and do it, kid.
Yeah, and tell your friends, or we'll send Uncle Larry around and he'll kick your mum. All right, Sam, I want to do my sum up first.
Good.
So I think that The Wicker Man is ultimately too self-serious and smug to be worthwhile.
Interesting.
Nothing ever feels like a swing. Everything is either derivative of The Wicker Man, 1973, or basically every other mid-2000s horror film. There are moments of like glimmering fun, and we've mentioned all of them: the bear, the bees, the knees, the music, the awful stilted conversations. You can find some joy in all of that. But ultimately, the film is too slow and too boring to be consistently fun throughout. It basically fails on every level. As a comedy, as an unintentional comedy, as anything. There's nothing scary, there's nothing dramatic, there's nothing mysterious. It's just a bunch of stuff happens and then the bees.
I've got to say, saying something fails as a comedy and an accidental comedy is pretty fucking scathing.
There are funny bits that are meant to be funny. There are funny bits that are not meant to be funny. Neither of it is enough. I give this film, The Wicker Man 2006, I give it 3 out of 12 broken knees.
Ouch. I thought you were going to give it the exact amount of broken knees that are in the theatrical cut. 0.
I mean, I toyed with giving it 2 broken knees because that's the maximum amount of broken knees, and broken knees are bad. But then that wouldn't really, it would sound like I was giving it full marks. I don't want to do that.
You really thought this through, but you thought so much through. Wow. Okay, so probably not something you're going to watch again anytime soon.
No. I think I've done my time with the Wicker Man. I've spent 18 years in the presence of the Wicker Man. I think maybe it's time to put him to the Wicker Bad.
Brilliant. I didn't plan anything to say about this film. For some reason, I like it. I continue to this day to find it a deep mystery as to why. I think just because it's Nicolas Cage remaking a movie that I think is a bit overrated and doing a terrible job. I think I actually love that it exists more than I actually enjoy watching it. It's definitely a one and done. I'm not recommending that anyone watch this film, but if you are going to watch it, maybe just watch it once.
Yeah.
I really think that when it's funny, it is genuinely funny, and it's not even remotely scary. It's not even remotely thrilling. It's barely a film.
Yeah.
For some reason, it's classed as such. So check it out, I guess, if the music's good. I don't know. Why am I defending it? I feel so bad.
The music is good,
give
though.
it...
Listen to just listen to the score and picture a wonderful movie in your brain.
That's a great idea. Yeah. I mean, you gave this 3 out of 12, right?
Yeah.
I'm going to give this movie 2 inexplicably dead pilots out of 10.
Okay. So you're
Dead
rating it lower
pilots.
than me, even though that you like it more.
Yes.
Well, you've really fucked me over on that one, Sammy.
You said you wanted to go first. I can't say that something I like is good by virtue of me liking it. It is shockingly bad. There's just there's a lot of bad stuff in this world that I like, and this happens to be one of them. So sorry, everyone. Sorry, everyone, is all I can say.
Maybe on our social media, I'll go and share some of my favorite bad movies.
Yeah, this isn't even one of my favorite bad movies. It doesn't even qualify. But you should definitely do that. I could do the same.
Yeah, maybe we'll make a little bit of extra content at some point where we talk about some of our favorite bad films.
A little top 5, maybe.
Yeah, all right.
I bet some of your favorite bad movies might just be movies I think are really good.
Yeah, The Breakfast Club, The Goonies.
They're good films.
That's the Jokers that. I mean, I don't particularly
like
the Jokers that you like them.
Yeah.
So they must
like
be
them
bad.
Quite a lot. They are. Well, I don't know. Goonies is one of the
Goonies is dog shit. Any mention of the Goonies going forward is edited out of the podcast. FYI.
You should just edit out what I say about the Goonies and leave in what you say. So it sounds like I'm not even contesting. My silence is compliance.
Yeah. Well, Sam, that was The Wicker Man.
Just exhausting.
It's December next week.
Wow. Okay. What does that mean?
It means that we're going to be covering some festive horror films.
How fun. That's a genre that I enjoy.
It is.
We've already done the best one. How can we go on from here?
Well, you and they will just have to wait and see.
Tune in and find out.